Welcome back to the podcast. Today I am joined by two amazing young ladies to discuss life and all things that incorporate what is life, right? So first I'd like each lady to introduce themselves and we'll dive right into what we'll discuss today. Feel free to just say your name, how old you are, and then we'll dive into why I brought you guys together and why I think you guys are amazing for this topic and definition that we'll explore today.
Okay, my name's Tamika. I'm 22 years young.
And I'm Sandy. I am 23 years old.
Oh, she old.
Nice. Yes, because you only age with time. Like fine wine, ladies, like fine wine. So today I'd like to talk to you about how you've established self-value and self-worth, right? In terms of how have you defined that in the age of social media? Ooh, eyebrows are being raised. I like the eyebrows being raised. Why? First, let's talk into the eyebrows being raised. Season 2 will have a visual component, so we can all kind of see the body languages that are going on right now as soon as I said social media. So do you want to start with social media, and then we'll...
Yeah, you got to break it down. I feel like we got to break that one down, because that was a lot in one. That was the eyebrow raise, I feel like.
I could definitely answer with the self-value. I just feel like it's what you do, in a sense, like... You show your value by your actions. Like how you value yourself, especially how you treat yourself, how you treat others. I just feel like a lot of that, and then incorporating social media in that. I would say, what you put out there, like your content you put out on your page, the people you connect with, and everything. Yeah, I just like.
So it's the consumption of social media as well as your contribution, right? So it's a two-way street.
Definitely.
I like that.
Yep.
I like that.
Yeah, like adding on to what she said, it's definitely separate in a way, because I feel like what you reflect on your social media as well is kind of what you're going to get back. So like, you set that bar like of self-value and self-worth, but also it's hard to say, because I feel like these days, like my generation girls, they feel like they use this feminist like power to try to like justify doing certain things that, let's say, wasn't the norm back in the day. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Give me an example. What's a certain thing?
Lord Jesus.
No, give me.
Oh, you really want? Okay,
yes,
let's say the tea.
Here
let's get
on
spicy.
Divine.
OnlyFans. I'm talking about even identifying yourself as a influencer on Instagram.
Yeah.
And how you portray that and go on with that as a job and a career.
Yeah.
Like the power that holds, I feel like.
I agree with you, but to an extent, like especially when you bring back in the days, because back in the days, a lot of things that were the norm weren't right and morally right at all. So I just feel like, especially with the OnlyFans topic, I don't know. I really don't see an issue with it. Like I even heard some nurses getting fired for having OnlyFans, and it's just like, to be honest, if you're grown, you pay your own bills. If you want to show a little picture for $20 of some revealing, like that's
a little skip,
that's your choice. Like I honestly don't feel like you're hurting anybody. Like if you're telling me you're worried about your kid seeing it, so if your kid is able to spend $20, I'm pretty sure not his money or her money on OnlyFans, then that's kind of on you as a parent. Like,
true,
because
the person who's actually purchasing it. Okay. And me even throwing it out there, I didn't want to say like, okay, girls who have OnlyFans don't value themselves, or like, you know what I mean. But
I think what you touched on with OnlyFans is the sexual exploitation of yourself, right? The fact that you kind of, and how
it's misguided in a way. It's misled. Like some people would get
I love
it from
that
different
you
ranges.
guys have conflicting perspectives on this, right? You say it's misguided. Sandy's saying that it's actually based on personal choice and responsibility. And like she said, there are nurses which are intellectual professionals that are choosing to go this route. So, which is a really good intersection, because it actually makes you explore more back to like self-value, right? So, like you said, it's misguided. Do you think that a nurse who would do such a thing doesn't value
Remember,
themselves?
we was connecting it to social media,
exactly,
to what.
But
the world would think is okay.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying. But in the world of societal pressures and judgment, right? Was that okay?
I feel like it's all subjective though, because even in other countries, social media isn't allowed. Women aren't even able to show certain parts of their body. Like it's just a lot. Like a lot of ways. Like I guess America is more modernized in their thinking when it comes to like OnlyFans and social media and how you portray yourself. But in other places, it's more like strict. They're way more strict, and you don't get a lot of freedom at all. So I feel like it can be empowering too, being able to make an OnlyFans and do certain things.
I like that. Look at
sure.
Sandy sway to people.
Yes.
But I like that. I think, and that's the beauty of this podcast, right? Helping people see multiple perspectives of a singular topic. And yes, granted, we started with self-value, but I think you brought in a good point to make that. Yes, social media is a platform, just like OnlyFans is a platform, and it's how you contribute to these platforms that help you identify who you are, thus self-value. And it's interesting to hear that, like, OnlyFans ain't a bad thing. Let me shout out, stop, you know, check it out, bag, boy, check it away. But I think that's really interesting. But so if we strip back social media, right, and kind of take it off the table, how do you think we got to how you value yourselves as young ladies and women in this generation prior to exposure to social media? Because I feel like your generation, it was like middle school, it was like we on Facebook, like, you know what I mean? Opposed to my generation where it was like we had AIM in middle school, you know? Not to date myself, because you know I'm real cute, but I'm just saying, like, you know what I mean? So because you've been exposed to it from such a young age, right? And I always feel like middle school, which is like the tween 10, 12 to 13, is like, you know, a really sticky time for both men and women, right? So because it's been such a part of your life, that's why I wanted to, you know, kind of touch on it. But I also think it's important to establish, how did you find self-value before the external exposures, right? In your homes, in yourself. How did that path to self-identity come to be?
I feel like where you're brought up, like how you were brought up, like before you even got to see social media, what did you know what was okay and what wasn't okay for a female to do or a male to do or a human being in general to do and value themselves at the same time? I feel like at that age, we just knew.
At what age? It doesn't have to be at a specific age. I'm just asking you for your journey of first identifying like your identity, right? I think we all start as the child of X, you know what I mean? The sister of Y. But how did you find your way to Tamika? And we're still finding our ways, right? This is like an ever long journey through life of identifying who you are in that stage. But I feel
knowing what you want to accept and what you don't accept. Like, you know, I feel like...
So back to what Sandy said, do you feel like self-identity and self-value is based on actions? How did you establish your journey?
I would say most importantly, putting other views aside, like putting like, okay, yeah, I'm my mother's daughter, but I'm also me. Like just focusing on yourself, honestly, being kind of selfish with finding yourself. And I feel like that didn't happen for me until I reached my 20s, probably till after I turned 21. Like, honestly, I also struggled a lot with self-hatred and everything. But it was important for me to just, you know, be accountable for my ways and forgive myself for a lot of things and just focus on me, honestly. And I feel like that's an important part of valuing yourself when you disregard how others feel that you should be or what you should be or where you should be when you should be. Like, it's just, it's up to you. I feel like you just have to just focus on yourself. And I know it's hard to
learn on the way.
Yeah,
I get it.
I think that's amazing though. I love that. I love that answer. I love the way you articulated that, because I think something I want to pull out of that is some key things you said, like learning to forgive yourself and accept yourself and see yourself. You know what I mean? And yes, you said you've gotten there in your 20s, but how did you feel like your teenage years or prior to led you to realize that you are
my mistakes?
Who you are.
Your mistakes you learn. Yes, you really learn. And even now, I still learn. Like, I'm so far from where I really want to be when it comes to, like, loving myself and, you know, embracing who I am. But it's just... the mistakes, it really teaches you a lot. It
brings you back to the saying, who don't hear must feel.
Oh, like, come on, really jump in.
Like, it's true. Like and when you hear that saying, I feel like you said, the Jamaican saying, you hear it from your parent. Your parent tells you that, okay, if you don't listen, don't worry, you're going to feel one day by whooping. But in all reality, I use that saying in my life because it's like, sometimes I get constructive criticism. Sometimes I get people telling me like, hey, you could have said this differently, or, you could have did this differently. And we tune it out because we feel like our way is the best way or whatever. But me learning and like growing, I've realized that if you don't like acknowledge and reflect on the person that you are, like you won't see growth. Progress. Then there's no progress. And you won't even know who you are, really. You'll just be dibbling dabbling.
Let alone value yourself.
Exactly.
I think that's so good and so powerful to hear, like, in your early 20s that's how you feel, that like self-reflection and accountability comes hand in hand. I think that's so awesome. I feel like, okay, there's hope for this generation.
Yes. And I was going to say, I feel like the reason why a lot of people aren't like our age thinking like that, which I can't speak for everyone, but just because
that's a topic, girl.
I feel like people just so revolved around the wrong things. Like, you really do have to bring it in. You really do have to look at yourself in the mirror. Like, you can't, just like when people, like, I know everyone knows someone that just puts blame on everything else except with looking within. Like, it's just a lot of that going on. I feel like people aren't focusing on what they should be focusing on. Like,
I love that, though. I love that. But do you feel like you came to that based on your culture, based on your academic knowledge, right? So, as people know, you are, a college student doing your thing. But how do you feel like you came to that place where that was something you realize only you can control, only you can really own? Because I think like you said before, there are many people who kind of exist in this world living what I feel like is, without divine, motive, and purpose, right? Because it's hard. I think it's hard. It's hard for people to look at themselves, and I like it's a hard thing to do. But the way I settle with it, and I've been settling with it, and I encourage my girls, is that you are the only person you can't run from. Like,
exactly,
true. You can run from everybody else, but at every time you wake and every time you lay, you are the person you need to you know what I mean, reconcile with and be true with. So I love that you guys at such a young age has come to that place where you realize, like, no, I need to champion me. I need to hold myself accountable. I need to be the best version of me, but hold myself. And, like you said, constructive criticism. How did you get to that place? I think that's really important, because I don't think I would like, I'm an optimist. I'm optimistic to the world. So I would like to believe that everybody wants to get there one day, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, how did you acknowledge that these mistakes were yours? And this is the root. This is the
repetition.
Root. This is the root. How did you get there?
Like repetition. Not even just specifying it to one category of something happening in my life and knowing that, that part, probably just kept failing, but in all areas of my life, like where it's like, okay, clearly this mistake keeps happening. Clearly, like, something is constantly wrong here. Okay, if it's not the other person, or if it's not this job, or if it's not this thing, is it me? Like, it just leaves you to know. And I feel like that's where we have to, I don't know if it's solace or solitude, but we have to find that, like, because when you're alone, that's when you realize most. And a lot of people are distracted because they have so much people around them to distract them. Like, so it's easy for them to go on about life and not acknowledge things or self-reflect.
I was just about to say that.
Yep, that's what I kept thinking about when you said, your background or whatever, and certain things that you didn't have, which led you to this podcast as well. That's what made you realize, like, something needs to change in a sense. Like, it's you. I was
just about to say that. A big part of how I got to where I'm at now about valuing myself is literally self-affection and just my hardships that I endured. I realized when I was at my bottom personally, I felt like I got myself out of that. Like, when I was at my worst, regardless of anybody around me, like, I'm here today because of me. Like, I could have did a lot of other things and not been here. Like, but I'm here. And it's just, I think a lot of that growth and that self-love comes from reflecting on your hardships, reflecting on your doubts, everything. You just really have to look at yourself. Like,
and I feel like, just to, like, add on to that, a reason why I feel like our generation, it's so hard for us to do that is because it's so uncomfortable.
It is.
Like, it's so in the spiritual side of it, when people say meditating can be hard,
Mhm.
like in real life for our generation, it's hard to sit back and look at yourself and say, yeah, that was you. Or yeah,
Mhm.
maybe I could have changed.
This is so interesting because it goes back to like the saying of everything is hard, right? Adversity is hard. Silence is hard. Which heart are you going to choose?
Exactly.
You know, it goes back to everything. Like nothing in life worth having is easy.
Easy, exactly.
Right? So it's hard. So I love that both silence and adversity has brought you both to this place where it's like, no, it's me. I need to champion me. And like you said, Sandy, like I brought myself to where I am. It was by my will and determination to
Mhm.
the best version of myself. Because I think what often happen is like we're so, you know, in life things happen, right? We can kind of go on for days about the different things that could happen. But I feel like when people are at their lowest or they feel like they're falling, because they're so consumed by the uncomfortableness of that descent, they don't even look up. They don't look up to see that if you keep looking through it, it's a better situation. You know, the best is coming. The better end is through it, not in it.
Yep.
It's through it.
Yep.
So I love that you guys are so young and you know what I mean, and have already came to the place where you're like my adversity. Because you know, looking at the grand scheme of things, I feel like as adults and different generations, they feel like, oh, the young people, then not a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
and you know that I think
That's
I
a
think
part of the problem.
I know. You know, I think, and it goes into so many different things, which I want to continue the conversation with younger people, like, you know, my daughter who's in her early teens, like, you know what I mean? I think mental health and emotional health is super important, right? And going back to that, but I think in every stage of your life, the sooner you've identified that your best advocate is yourself,
yes,
that's when you start in life. There will always be descent, right? You could achieve the best career, get the perfect relationship, get all the money, but there will always be a point of descending, right? Where you're falling down or something doesn't go in the way you wish it went.
Yeah.
And I think once you come to identify the key component, right, is self. And I can look through it opposed to being in it. That's how I learn. That's how I get better. That's how I identify and reflect, like you were saying. Yeah. So I think that's awesome. I love to hear that it was adversity that brought you there and self-reflection that brought you there. And you know what I mean? And speaking on how your generation has like grappled with it, right? But in the world of like perception, right? Because you know, your generation got it all. Y'all got the Googles.
The Googles.
You know, I call it the Googles because I well and did have an encyclopedia. Okay, I had
autocorrect saved my school career. I swear, autocorrect. Like I don't know where I would be without autocorrect.
Exactly. And we didn't have autocorrect. We had pronunciation.
Okay, you broke up the word.
And I even heard on the typewriters they had to start over once they made a mistake.
Yes,
they would have to start all over.
The whole.
You could be on the last page, on the last word on the page.
You have to start all over. Oh my gosh! And I think that leads us to our next topic, which I kind of want you to define for me. Right? Is knowledge. I feel like knowledge comes in various streams. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest teacher in life is experience.
Yeah, yes. I was just about to say that.
I think the biggest teacher in life is experience. I know scholars and academia leaders who will attest to that, right? But we are still a society of that are heavily credited to academia. Right? Mm-hmm. What books have you read? What have you achieved in college?
What degrees you have?
Get your doctorate. You know what I mean? So I love to hear from you guys how your academic career and your personal, as well as your social environment, have brought you to self-reflection and self-value.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I say it all the time. If it's anything, I say I'm grateful. Like, I'm not in school, opposed to Sandy here, who is in school. I'm not in college right now. I graduated high school. You know, I ain't no dunce. But
I ain't no dunce.
Heavy on that. Okay, period. But what I wanted to say on that, like, every time I realize when I give somebody advice on something that I've experienced or went through, I realize that I always say I'm grateful for the people around me because I know a piece of everyone. I don't want to go into details, but like, I know somebody in school. I know people who's successful who's not in school. I know business owners. Like, I know people who's striving for more, who just, doesn't go the common way the common route that everybody expects you to go. Mm-hmm. Go to high school, go to college, get your degree. Okay, get a career, become a doctor, become a lawyer. I feel like whichever route you choose, you can be amazing in that. Like, as long as it's what you want. That's one. And two, I feel like experience, it puts us as, I don't know if it kind of reminds me of being street smart and being book smart.
Hello, I love the street smart.
Like, yeah, so I don't want to say that people who has their family who put them all the way through school, and haven't had the leisure to be in the streets. How can I say? Like, not physically in the streets, but in the streets, just in the world, exposed to the streets, just took the common route. I feel like you won't cut, but okay. That took the common route. I feel like the people who aren't in school and didn't get that common route, they also gained so much knowledge from the streets.
Yeah.
And it gives
life. It's not
and from life, yeah.
I think people discount it when you say street
streets.
smart.
Yeah, I want to say
they feel like it's kind of like a cultural thing, but I think what you really mean is like life experience. They gain life experience, right? And I think as we evolve as a society, we see it more commonly accepted, where it's like, oh, my daughter's taking a gap year, right? Yeah. Hashtag Malia Obama, took a gap year to work and receive life experience in a career before she devolved in it, right? But I think prior to our society getting to this place, it was shunned upon. It was like, what? You don't want to be a doctor, a lawyer, or
if you took a break, it was, she dropped out. They dropped out. They took a break, they dropped out.
Oh my God, they're gonna be a bum living on the street. Like, you know what I mean?
But that doesn't identify you, I feel like, at all. And I feel like on both sides, you could become the same type of successful. Like, with or without the degree. And to be honest, not to shun the people who do have degrees and who are trying to go for, their masters and everything, but don't think that a paper is going to identify you either. Because if you can't back up if you can't back up that degree and you cannot sell yourself to say, no, I'm for this job or I'm for this lifestyle and this is what I want to do, I wouldn't hire you myself, even if I had a PhD. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want you to waive the degree.
It's interesting how you think as at selling yourself. I always feel like it's show up. Degree or not, show up. Show up in your best self as yourself. Because I think what people discount is their own intelligence.
Yeah. Me. And I'm a voucher for that because like I said, I'm not in school.
Their own intelligence.
So me going into careers, I realized that I used to just feel like, okay, this is what I got. This is all I got to give. But I never actually felt like I put my best effort until my last job in talking myself up. Like, no, girl, you got experience. You've done this. You've done that. You've seen this. You've been there. Like, and after I did that, I realized it had such a greater impact on my life, my financial life and everything. And you just gotta, it goes back to what we was talking about, like, really believe in yourself, like, really
find your value.
Once you find your value, the sky is not even the limit.
And don't let society tell you about you, because even when it comes to education, even if you're a high school dropout, like, your value you're worth a lot. Like, it's all what you do with it. Like, okay, if you're not going to go to school and it's not for you, which is not for everyone, even me, I'm in college, but even when my sister asked me the other day, she asked me to help her start a business. She says, oh, because you're in school, so that you're smart, you can help me. And it's like, girl, people done be millionaires and dropped out of high school. Like, people, like, that doesn't define who you are. Academic success and
academia does not define the ability to run or start.
Yeah, your IQ score, like, that doesn't mean anything.
Everyone's score is only good for but so much time.
You know how hard it is. Like, you can have your doctorate, and there's like 20 other people applying for the same job with their same doctorate, with the same. They had internships and all of this, and you can still be jobless, unemployed, and broke and homeless. Like, you can have 7 PhDs and be homeless. Like, that doesn't mean
unemployed and broke.
Yes, like, you can. I just feel like
and then
that does not define you. It does not define you, like, at all. I feel
and in shit deeper debt.
for real, it doesn't define you.
I think that is so amazing. I think so many good things came from what you both said. Mostly, like, don't let your achievements, either academia or elsewhere, define you, but use them to empower you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
always make you the foundation, I feel like.
True. Mm-hmm. But that's what I'm saying. And it goes back to self-value, right? Yep. Because I always feel like people underestimate themselves just because we are a society of validation, right? So unless someone's standing by you and be like, no, remember, you can read. Like, you know what I mean? They forget you can read. Oh, wait, I can read. Yes, you can articulate. Maybe you should slow down. Oh, you're right. I can actually speak. You know what I mean? Because we have this dependency on validation, which is basically a societal, situation, which hashtag another topic.
Yes.
Seriously, validation.
True. But I think it's important that you guys said, like, those achievements don't define who you are, right? You can't sell you these achievements, like you said, to get a job or to get further or to even win a relationship. What you have to do is show up as yourself and use these achievements to power you. And then also use them to motivate you and maybe pivot. Yep. Do something else. I know so many people who've gone to school for many different things and have achieved various levels of degrees. And granted, it is not discounted without merit, but I know someone who went to school for years to be a pharmaceutical technician, if I'm saying that right, and then decided after many, many years, obviously, of investment, to go into marketing. You know what I mean? But this all is the experience of learning what the pharmaceutical industry. It molds you, and it helps you find your route back to yourself. Back to yourself, right? So I thought that was really good to hear you guys say, like, these achievements are great, but it's still all about me. Like, you know what I mean? And then, like, just the way we were brought up, which I really do feel like is a second topic, another topic. We touch on so much here, which I really love, right? Because if we kind of circle it all back, that's why I really wanted to establish this podcast, because more often than not, our differences lie in how we define things, how we've come to the realization that the sky is blue, right? And it's in that journey that the differences lie. But the sky is blue for you, just like the sky is blue for me. So the underlying definitions, more often than not, are the same. The journeys are what's different. And if we allow ourselves to learn from each other's journeys and experiences, we learn perspective. We learn compassion. We learn understanding.
To be more selfless as well.
Exactly.
Because we are on this earth together. You know what I mean? My success is your success. Your success is my success. And I just want to debunk this whole stigma of we as a people are not for each other. Lies. We as women are not for each other. Lies. Like, you know what I mean? And really get to a place where we're comfortable having uncomfortable conversations. Because I know as much as I appreciate and adore you ladies for coming here today and doing this podcast, I know you both were like, oh my God, what topic is she going to ask me? And she doesn't tell us before we hit record. Jesus Christ. Like, you know, I know there were nerves there, and I appreciate you entrusting this conversation with me. But ultimately, for all of us to get to this place where those nerves drive us, those nerves make us go, ooh, I'm ready to get into this conversation. Because once those nervous feelings and feelings of uncertainty become standard, then you can walk in any room and sell yourself. Because no is not guaranteed, but I'm comfortable at nervous. I'm comfortable at who knows what they're going to say to me. But that's when you sell yourself. That's when you show up for yourself. Because then you sit back in the silence, right? Because it's in the silence that we get to a better place. That's when you sit back in the silence and you be like, oh God, girl, you was really nervous about that. You know? Did I really do that? Exactly. And then you reflect and you go, oh my God, I was really nervous about that podcast. Girl, but I did it, and I did a good job. And then from that comma, you go, I'm really good at this. What else do I want to do with my life? And that's where I want everybody to get to. I want you to get to a place where uncomfortable is uncomfortable and what?
Exactly.
And what?
You have to be okay with hearing no too, because it's going to be a yes. Like, Don't let that stop you,
all
bring
you
you
need
down.
is one.
Exactly.
All you need is one.
Exactly.
Thank you guys so much for joining me on this conversation. This
You're
was
welcome.
amazing.
Yes.
Thank you so
I love
much,
it
and I
too.
look forward to you joining again. Thank you for listening. Continue to add dimensions to your definitions. Please join the conversation on all social platforms. #HowDoYouDivine. See you soon.